End the meeting at 7 p.m. Well, this brings me to our speaker tonight, January 25th, 2021, in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, and tonight's speaker is Diane. I'd like to welcome Diane, everybody. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Okay, you ready? Hi, my name is Diane, and I'm definitely an alcoholic.
Hi,
You
Diane.
see me playing this game up here. I can't decide whether or not to breathe or to see, but I can't seem to do both at the same time. So I'm going to err on the side of breathing right now. So my name is Diane, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. It's interesting. I met Daryl, who's not here yet. He's running late. Asked me to speak. I met Daryl about a month ago, maybe something like that. He popped into my home group, which happens to be the Goya, which is G-O-Y-A, which is Get Off Your Ass, meeting in Pottstown. It meets at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday at St. John's UCC in Pottstown. And he asked me to speak, and I said, you know, where, and he told me where it was. And I hesitated, and my sponsee jumped right in and said, well, you're not allowed to say no. And I went, yeah, you're right. I'm not allowed to. Well, it's highly suggested that you don't turn down a commitment in AA. So I had to go home and figure out, why did I hesitate? Because I normally jump in with both feet. And I was talking with her on the hour ride here from around Pottstown, and it suddenly occurred to me that I did a lot of drinking in Bucks County. I was never sober in Bucks County, but I did a lot of drinking. And I grew up in Bucks County, and I graduated from Council Rock High School back when there was one high school, not two. So I'm dating myself. And I left Bucks County because I wanted to leave my family of origin, still active in their alcoholism. And I never came back. And I guess there's a reason for that. And so I'm here now. I'm back. I'm in Bucks County. I'm sober. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. So it was kind of a trip down memory lane driving to get here, because my parents, I grew up in Ivy Lane, Bucks County, and so some of these roads that we were on are very familiar. There's no easy way to get from here to there, except 663 and 313, and it's not a fun ride, but it was pretty cool. So here I am, and so when Daryl said, you know, what's my favorite step? And I said, well, it's step 3. And he asked me why, and I said, because it talks about God as I understand him. And I was talking to a friend of mine in the program who just celebrated 39 years, and we were talking about my favorite step, and she's like, no, Diane, no, you're talking about step 2. You know, came to believe that a power greater than yourself. And I was like, no, Phoebe, I'm talking about step 3, and this is why. So it's kind of like where I'm coming from. I grew up with God. I grew up with a God as my family understood him. A God in the religion that I grew up in. And I'm not going to bash anybody's religion. If it works for you, that's fine. This particular religion didn't work for me, and I always had questions, and I didn't understand, and I couldn't find anybody to really answer my questions. But I knew that the God that I grew up with didn't like me, and I didn't like him. And he was mean, and he was unforgiving, and he was judgmental, and I was going to hell because I didn't do this or I did do that, and it depended on the days of the week and just all sorts of things, and I didn't understand. So being the good alcoholic that I am, I took that less than feeling that I always had, and I figured, well, if I'm going to go to hell, I'm going to have as much fun as I can getting there, and proceeded to do so for a lot of years. So I had a God that I didn't like, and today I can say that I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, I didn't know that I could have a God or higher power, however you choose to define your higher power. I choose to call mine God because I don't really know what else to call it, so I call him God. That I could have a God of my understanding, and not having that kept me confused and in darkness for a long time. Now, according to my friend, if I backed up to step 2, admitted we're powerless, well, that's step 1, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I had a power greater than myself for a lot of years, and that power was alcohol. Alcohol was my master. Alcohol ruled my life. I did dabble in other things, but I am first and foremost an alcoholic. So we'll stay with alcohol. And I didn't understand. I was raised Roman Catholic, Italian, Irish, military. So there were lots of rules in my house, and there were lots of consequences for not behaving and paying attention to those rules. And then you pile on, the religion and all of that, and I was just like, I was lost. And I didn't even know it. So I believe one of my character defects is defiance. So I decided that I was going to do what I want because I wanted to, and whenever I wanted to, and I pretty much did. And so I left home at the age of 18. I left my home in Bucks County, and I went to school. I had to stay in-state in college because my parents were not going to pay out-of-state tuition. So the furthest I could go was Pittsburgh, so that's where I went. Sorry to any Penn State fans out here, but I am a Pitt alum. And did very well in school, partied my brains out, did very well in school in spite of myself. And never really went home again. I always had an apartment with a roommate or something like that. I do want to back up and say I do have one sister who is not an alcoholic. So regardless of, we lived in the same house with the same parents, in the same school, in the same church, and the same unmanageability of growing up in an alcoholic household, I own my alcoholism 100%. And she and I have talked a lot about the way that we grew up and the way that we separately reacted or responded to circumstances. And I truly believe I was an alcoholic from conception, from the get-go. I had all the isms all of my life. Started with food or obsessions over grades or whatever kind of project I was working on. I always had that obsessive compulsion. And the other thing I always had, and I still do, is I call it my hamster wheel. My hamster's up there on the wheel in my head, and he just goes and goes and goes. I have a friend in the program who has flying monkeys. Her monkeys fly all over the place. I have a hamster wheel. And when I discovered that I could get my hamster wheel to slow down and my hamster to take a nap, that was like, I remember my first drink of alcohol, and it was that exhale, just that, and my hamster would slow down and he would take a break. And it was the only thing that I knew of that made me feel okay. All of a sudden I wasn't, if I was going to hell, it was going to be okay. And if I didn't get an A on a test, it was going to be okay. And the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous today give me that exhale that alcohol used to give me. I was nervous walking in here, but we pulled up outside and parked across the street, and we saw some people hanging outside, and I looked up the steps, and I'm like, those are my people. I feel more comfortable walking into this room than I do many other places on earth, including my own parents' living room. I can walk in here and I feel like I've come home. And no matter where I am, I've been to meetings in a lot of different states all throughout the country, and wherever I am, I can walk into a room of AA and I feel instantly comfortable. But anyway, I digress. So I had this God that I didn't particularly like, and I didn't think liked me, and I didn't think that I was doing very well in his eyes. So I kind of went off on a tangent for a really long time, and when I came into the rooms the first time, I'd like to say that I've been sober since 2004. I have not. This is not my first rodeo. I came in the first time in 2004 as a married woman with 3 little kids and a husband who didn't know what to do with me. And everybody would say, well, you have a husband who makes a lot of money, you can stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, you should be happy. Or, if you loved your husband enough, you could stop drinking. Or if you loved your kids enough, you could stop drinking. Or if you got more involved in church, or if you volunteered at school, or all of these things. And what that did for me was make me feel even more isolated and alone. It made me feel like, well, if I was good enough, and if I had enough willpower, and if all this stuff, then I could stop drinking. Just like I could stop eating chocolate cake or stop, whatever else. And I did a lot of those things. I got more involved in church, and what happened was I taught Sunday school drunk. And I did a lot of things that people suggested that I do, because if I just did this, then I could stop drinking. And when I was dropped off at the woman who became my first sponsor, my husband actually drove me to her house and left me there with a duffel bag that I had packed while I was drunk. And she was my Ebby Thatcher. And if anybody is familiar with the big book, page 12, talks about when Ebby Thatcher comes to visit Bill Wilson. And Bill's all excited because they were drinking buddies, and he pushes a glass of gin across the table. And Ebby says that he doesn't want to drink, and he doesn't drink anymore. And they have this discussion on why Ebby is sober, and apparently Ebby looks amazing. He's bright-eyed, and he's clean-shaven, and he's dressed well, and Bill just can't wait to have another drink because he really needs one. And my first sponsor, her name is Amber, and she's got a lot of years right now. She was my Ebby Thatcher. And she said to me basically what Ebby said to Bill. And I'm going to read from page 12. My friend suggested that what seemed like a novel idea, he said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered for many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing, there's that word, willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more is required for me to make my new beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. So my first sponsor, she basically said that. She's like, Diane, find your own conception of God. And my brain went, like, wow, you mean like I don't have to have that very austere, judgmental entity that I really wasn't allowed to talk to, I couldn't relate to. I could make up my own God. And that was revolutionary for me. And then I had a sponsor, she's still my sponsor now, and I'm very visual, and I also spent a lot of time teaching special ed. So she had me do an object lesson, which might seem a little bit elementary, but it worked for me. She had me take a piece of paper and divide it in half horizontally. And at the top, she had me list all the characteristics that I could think of the God of my youth, the God of my upbringing, the one that I didn't like and the one that I was afraid of. And I wrote down all those attributes and all those adjectives and everything. And then on the bottom half of the paper, she had me write down the God that I know, the God that I would like to know, and the attributes of that God. So for instance, on the top of the paper, I put judgmental, condemning, hard to talk to, and a whole bunch of things that I thought about that God. And at the bottom of the paper, I put loving and forgiveness and someone I can talk to all the time, and someone who loves me and will never leave me. And then she had me put a big X through the top of the paper. And she's like, no, that is no longer your God. Your God is the one at the bottom of the paper. And that's the God of my understanding. And I'd like to say that I understand my God, but he's a God of my understanding who I don't understand, and that's okay. And today my relationship with the God of my understanding is one of comfort. He, she, it, however you want to define him, is my best friend, and I talk to my God all the time. I pray in the morning, 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer. I pray all day. I was praying earlier this morning that may his words come out of my mouth. And, I had a bunch of things that I was going to prepare for speaking, and then I heard my first sponsor's voice in the back of my head saying, Diane, absolutely under no circumstances may you prepare yourself for a speaking engagement. And I said, why? And she said, because it has to be God-breathed. And if you're preparing for it and writing down notes, then there's your words and not his. So I said, okay. I won't prepare for this, but it killed me all day. I'm like, but I want to write notes, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I didn't. So what you hear is this. This is just, I am just winging it here. Trying to think, where am I going with this? Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Made a decision for me means surrender. I was actually told by my outside help that I suck at surrendering. I was also told by my husband that I suck at surrendering too. I have that need to control everything, and I find when I do that, that's when life gets difficult. When I am on my spiritual beam and I can cast all my cares up to my higher power and trust and surrender that he knows better than me, then my life pretty much rolls right along just like it should. It's not necessarily easy, and it's definitely not perfect. I mean, I am an empty nester mom of 2 college seniors and a daughter who's married, and I have 3 grandkids, and we have 4 dogs and 3 cars in the driveway and a mortgage, and my husband desperately needs to retire, and he won't do it because he's a control freak himself. He's going to save the world one client at a time. I'm a med tech, CNA. I work in healthcare during a pandemic. My life is not perfect. When I'm on my spiritual beam and I've surrendered that I am not in control of anything can happen, and I'm good with it. I don't care, because I know that my higher power's got my back. The minute I start reeling that in, I'll just do a little of this, and I'll just do a little of that. And if only this person would, or that, then all of a sudden, I'm sitting at work and I'm getting pissy and I'm getting angry and everybody's on my nerves, and if only everybody would act the way I want them to do and do what I want them, and why is the car in front of me driving 30 miles an hour instead of 50 like they should, and everything's bothering me. I have to look at that and say, okay, your coworker did the same thing to you last night and it was okay. They did it tonight and you're pissed off. What's the difference? The difference is me. The difference is I'm not accepting, and there's that word again too, acceptance. I'm not accepting of things as they are and the way they should be. And I have to look at that, and I've had a lot of chances to look at a lot of things over the past 6 or 8 months or whatever. And I find that when I make that conscious decision, okay, God, I wake up in the morning and I pray, take this day from me, may it be as you would have it to be. And I truly mean it. before my feet hit the floor. This day is yours. And then my feet hit the floor. And then the dogs need to go out. And the car has to be started because it's 20 freaking degrees outside and I need to be somewhere and all this stuff. And then life hits. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to control life instead of letting life go on life's terms and being accepting of what happens. When I make that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, sometimes it's not even one day at a time. Sometimes it's every hour. Sometimes it's every 5 minutes, depending on what's going on. When I can do that, my life is good, even when it's not. When I don't do that, my life is bad, even when it's good. It's all a matter of perception. And my husband has a sponsor who will always say that this is a disease of perception. Most of the time, one day at a time, my life goes along just like it did yesterday, just like it will tomorrow. I get up in the morning, I go to a meeting, I come home, I do laundry, I cook, I pack my lunch, I go to work, I work my shift, I come home, I shower, I go to bed, I get up and I do it the next day. So why are some days easier than others? What makes the difference? And the difference is me. And what's going on in between this, what is this, 10 or 12 inches or whatever this is from one ear to the next. And it's all my perception. And I've had a lot of things happen. My dog became paralyzed in June and needed emergency surgery to the tune of a lot of money. But we did it. I had major back surgery and was on 12 weeks of leave of absence from my job. They tell me I went into AFib, so now I'm on 3 different medications because they tell me I have a heart problem, which now they don't think I have. Talk about having your world rocked. And like, okay, God, I go in for a back surgery and I come out with a heart problem? Like, how does that happen? And, so there's been a lot of things, and my husband working from home since March is enough to drive any woman crazy. And I want him to go back to the office, but there's no office to go back to. And, and do I have any problems today? No, I don't, Then I go into work and I look at the person dying from COVID. I don't have any problems today. I have nothing, So it's for me, it's a matter of perception. It's a matter of turning my will and my making that decision to turn it over to the care of my higher power. And my higher power is mine, thank you very much, and you can't have him. He's me, he's mine. I've worked really hard to get my higher power just the way I like my higher power. And the beauty of this program is I can take some of your higher power and some of your higher power and some of your higher power, and I can take what I like and I can leave the rest. And I don't put my higher power in a box. He's not Protestant, he's not Catholic, he's not Buddhist, he's not this, he's not that. Call it whatever you want. As long as my higher power is stronger and bigger than me and my disease, I'm okay. And you can call it whatever you want. I believe my higher power talks to the people in these rooms. My higher power is on the beach. My higher power is in the backyard when I'm pulling weeds out of my flower bed in bare feet and I can feel the dirt between my toes that grounds me. My higher power is on my yoga mat with me. My higher power is when I look in the eyes of my 10-month-old granddaughter. And even though my daughter is asking me to change her diaper, I am blessed because this is the woman who 4 years ago wouldn't talk to me or let me see my grandkids. That's what this program does for me. This program, I don't want to say this program gave me a life or gave me my life back, because my life sucked. So I didn't want my life back. What this program gave me was a life. Somebody said to me, I got sober to have a life, and I stay sober to keep it. A guy I respect a lot in my home group says, I'm not the person I was when I walked through those doors X number of months or years ago, but I'm one drink away of being that person again. And I don't take that lightly. You know, I've seen people die from just relapsing. Well, I'll just go out and I'll have just one more. I'll try just one more time, and then we bury that person. I'm not willing to go there. You know, they talk about jails, institutions, and death. Death is the only one left. And, you know, I have 3 grandkids that I would love to see grow up, and I would love to grow old watching them grow up. God of my understanding is the higher power that I do believe can return me to sanity. Steps 2 and 3 for me are really enmeshed. There's a reason step 2 comes before step 3, and I needed to get through the quandary in my head about step 2. You know, I had a faith and I didn't have a faith, or am I too smart, or do I believe, or do I not believe, or what am I going to believe? You know, and then I read here in step 2 that it says the hoop you have to jump through is a lot wider than you think. And I'm very grateful for the founders of this program who made that hoop wide on purpose, so it can accompany, you know, so that we all can jump through it. You know, and today, as long as I stop fighting anything and anyone and realize that, you know, there is a God and I'm not it. And my first sponsor said that to me so many times in the couple of weeks I lived with her that I really wanted to strangle her with it. There is a God and I'm not it. And when I understand that to the depth of my being, my life is great. And I just have to remember that for me it's complete and absolute surrender 100% of the time. And when I do it 99% of the time, I can mess it up in a heartbeat. So I have a little quote that I would like to end with, and it comes from the 2nd edition, page 341, so don't go home and look it up unless you have a 2nd edition, because it's not there. And I don't remember where I got it from, but it says, surrender. We surrender to win. On the face of it, surrendering certainly does not seem like winning, but it is an AA. Only after we have come to the end of our rope, hit a stone wall in some aspect of our lives beyond which we can go no further, only when we hit bottom in despair and surrender can we accomplish sobriety, which we could never accomplish before. We must, and we do, surrender to win. And I'm here to tell you, as the daughter of a retired Army captain, surrender is the way to win. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.